Brown says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a priest! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell Killer!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host John, also known as 4020. Joining me for a special edition of the Tip Sheet is my good mate Sixties. Always a pleasure to have you on, big fella. And yeah, really looking forward to the chat we're about to have.
Yes, mate, I'm really looking forward to this. It's a one-off chat that we're doing and a little bit of a catch-up with a good mate of TCT's. And can also at this stage just do a special thanks as well to the Eels. They sent a jersey out to my family following the passing of my father just a short while ago, and that was much appreciated. I put the photo up on our social media, but I just also wanted to do a little bit of a shout out to the Eels and to Tamara for just the really lovely words and the condolences that they attached in the card as well. It was it's something that's going to go into a nice frame and find a special place in the house. So thanks again to the club for that, and also whilst thanks also to the sponsors of the Tip Sheet: Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, NRL and Parramatta, and of course Big Swing Golf at Northmead. Makes the podcast and everything that we do on the Cumberland Throw possible.
Yeah, well said, mate. And on that note, I'll let you introduce the special guest for this episode.
Well, John, as you know, rugby league has its fans all around the world, and even in the market in America, there's plenty of NRL fans. We got to chat with one of those who's not just a fan of the NRL and rugby league, he's also a fan of the Parramatta Eels. His name is Ron Greep. As I said, we've spoken to him before. We're now going to catch up with him to have a chat about the 2023 season, what he thinks lies ahead for the Eels next year, and some excitement around the Las Vegas trip. Ron, good to catch up with you again, mate.
Good to talk to you guys. Thank you for having me on your show again.
Always a pleasure, mate.
For sure.
Now, mate, just leading on from that introduction, as a supporter who's relatively new to rugby league and the Eels, this season just gone would be your first experience in following an unsuccessful Eels season. How did that impact you on how you followed the game in 2023? For example, did you find yourself being a lot more critical than you had been in previous seasons following Para?
Did it change anything? I'd say no. It was pretty much the same. Like I'd have to, as I explained in the last podcast, the games would come on between 11 p.m. to 3 in the morning. So my routine was just make sure I'm not on my phone in the morning, or if I worked late, not to go on my phone and just watch in the morning with my coffee and breakfast and all that. So my normal routine was pretty much the same, even despite all the losing and the inconsistency. So in that regard, no, even though they're losing, it stunk, but that stuff stayed the same. It almost made me want to watch more than before because, like, this team has a lot of talent. They were just in the grand final before, so it wasn't like I was displeased or there was all these promises or there was these expectations, but it was too early at the beginning when they did win those first 3 or 4 games, if I remember correctly, to stop watching because they were close in every game. It wasn't like they were getting blown out. But yeah, like I said, no, nothing really changed in that regard. Becoming more critical. I'd say like a little bit of yes and no. Yes, so I can see because now I can kind of see in my third full season of watching the NRL, let alone the Eels, I can kind of understand what's going on more and more in developing which players are making a big impact. Like I said prior, when 40s does all the stats after a game, I don't realize that like the big men, Follow and RCG or the forwards, Madison, they're like getting like almost 150 meters a game. And like when you watch it, maybe you don't realize that in real time and just how much of an impact they are. And then, with the different guys leaving the Eels and the bench players, you're seeing which guys made an impact before and now. And those kinds of things. So like, it's something I did notice more, and I was more critical of who's making an impact or not an impact or what we need to do differently. I'm still a tad bit hesitant to comment on defensive play because I need to maybe as more time goes on, as it has, like I'm gradually getting better. But the defense, it's just hard for me to grasp when like the wing or center crashes in, and then that dude sees it coming and just passes it to his left or right, and there's an open space and they score. Obviously, I think it's called the slide defense. I need to see like someone draw it up on a blackboard or something and tell me what's supposed to happen, because I try my hardest not to like comment on Facebook or hate X guy or like, gosh darn it, why did you? But like I don't know enough in that regard because I didn't grow up playing to understand why he's doing that at this exact time. And while he's doing that, they know it's open. What's supposed to happen after that? So part of that, I'm starting to get a little bit more critical with it. But I mean, more critical. It's just I'm paying attention more, but nothing's changed.
I think probably what you'll enjoy is, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit because you will be going to see some live NRL games, which we'll get onto.
Right.
But when you are able to watch the game live and you're seeing the full field and you're watching the defensive decisions of all the players in the line and seeing how defensive decisions of players further infield can impact the defensive decision as it slides across, because you have a lot of the teams employ a slide defense. So it's sort of like up and slide to towards the wings, and what happens out wide, the winger, it can often be impacted by what those players on the inside of them are deciding to do. So yeah, once you start to see that from a whole field perspective, it's going to be amazing the difference that will make to your understanding of the game compared to seeing the television coverage. Because I mean, rugby league's a great game for television because the action is all around the ball in terms of what can be covered on television, but seeing it live also gives you that broader perspective of what's happening off the ball and defensive decisions that are made as part of a system. So I think you're really going to enjoy that. You're probably going to come away from it with a bit more of an understanding and appreciation of the systems employed in a game and individual decisions and how they impact the whole line.
For sure. One of the things I did during the final series when I was watching the games, because I've heard this term used multiple times in the last 3 years, is shapes. And I'm starting to realize what those are. It's how the players are setting up before they start doing their passes and decoys and all those types of things. So like I was watching a video on it. I think it was a rugby video, not a rugby league, but I think it's all in the same vein, I believe. I hope I'm correct in that. But it was like a bird's eye view with players, and then they used like a little graphic with dots as they like went up the field. And I was starting to see these things like Sixties just mentioned, like the coverage and the camera angles are literally on the ball, which is cool in a sense. Like they zoom out when a guy breaks away, but I don't like this when the guy's tackled, they zoom in on him, and then when the dummy half throws the ball, sometimes in between there, someone breaks away or misses a tackle, and you don't see that, or like you see the guy pass and another pass or what it might be, and then you kind of miss out on what just had happened because you're so zoomed in on like where the play the ball is. And I'm not a fan of that. But I mean, if that's the one thing I dislike, I think I'll be okay watching going forward. But it'd be cool, kind of how like you watch an NFL game, you see the both sides of the ball, most of the players, and then the quarterback, and after that you see it kind of broken down. But it'd be cool to see a more zoomed out version of the play the ball, so I can see however many players on the left or right of that guy, and I can see why he's passing this way, or maybe I can see a shape forming up and why this pass is, that would be my only gripe on my TV viewership of watching a game.
Yeah, the NRL's got nothing like all 22 in the NFL where you can see the full field and see how free safeties are playing the QB and whatnot. When you're at the game, obviously you have that benefit with rugby league. You can see how the fullback is defending and how those shapes offensively and defensively are forming, so you'll enjoy that a lot. And the other thing I think with the live footy 60s is the sheer physicality. Obviously, you see the big hits on TV and you go, oh my God. But the actual collisions on a sort of set-for-set basis, some of the noises you hear, it's pretty like, oh my God, it's like a car crash. So you'll enjoy that as well. Now, Sixty's got you on your thoughts about the Parramatta Eels, but I want to canvass you on your broader thoughts on the 2023 NRL season, the standard, the performances of particular teams. We had the Penrith three-peat. I know that in Australia there was a lot of noise about how competitive it was for a lot of the teams that have sort of been outside that inner circle, inside the top 8, top 6. How did you see it as someone coming from, an American point of view?
Yeah, that was so during the season with the app that I use that's based through Fox. I get a lot of your guys' sports media channel. So the number one show that I watched out of all of them was NRL 360. And watching those guys, they would also harp on how close the competition was throughout all the teams early on. Obviously, when only you're losing 1 or 2 games, no one really knows who's good or not. But throughout the season, it was a pretty tight, other than the Dragons and the Tigers. Those teams obviously kind of weren't so good, and I'm trying to say that respectfully. Obviously, the Tigers beat the Panthers, which is pretty cool. You can win on any given Sunday, as they say. But excuse me. Yeah, it was close all throughout the season. There really wasn't too many blowout games. Maybe you can count on one hand how many you can consider blowouts. It was all very competitive. I really liked it, and you mentioned specific teams. So one of my goals was in my second year of watching last season was or not this season that just ended, the one before, was to watch other teams and learn more players on the other teams and what makes those teams good. And I think I really have a good grasp of who's on what teams, more players that are on each team. That's not just the key superstar guys, like the second, third tier guys. And it was cool to see those players and understand it at a more full grasp of each team and watching them and why they're good and why these guys maybe aren't as good. The teams that stood out to me that I like to watch were the Knights. I just thought when they were fully healthy, they were just really fun to watch. You got Ponga, Bradman, that Dominic Young is a freak.
Dom is a very talented player, yeah. Off to the Roosters.
That guy. And yeah, that's right, he is. And then what's his name? Jack Hastings. Gagai. That team was really fun for me to watch at full strength, and it just showed how different they were when Kalen was there and when he wasn't. Because my first couple of years, you hear about this guy, you see him advertised, you see his graphics everywhere and stuff, and I'm like, for me, in this short time frame over the last 3-4 years, I haven't seen a lot of him because he's been injured. The whole concussion thing was humongous, which is kind of crazy that he won the Daily M, even though there was a controversial thing there with Johnson. But he still played crazy good despite everything. Another team I like to watch was the Dolphins. Even though they were a new team, the first 5 weeks, people were like, they're doing incredibly better than anyone ever expected, and everyone thought they'd win one game or whatever it was. So it was cool to see all those players from different teams come to this one team with zero expectations and play pretty well, and just their little journey. They kind of tailed off there towards the end, unfortunately, but they kind of became my sleeper second favorite team there, just in the watching aspect. Like, wow, these guys played really hard, really well, and I learned a lot about Wayne Bennett, who I had never heard of before that.
Maybe you just have Ron, maybe you just have an affinity with sea creatures.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, right. That's funny. So that was pretty cool just to see that. And I think I know who my second favorite player is after Clint Gutherson. That's not an Eel player. I'm going to butcher his name. Tabuai-Fidow.
Oh, what a great pick, the Hammer. Yeah, he is electric.
Dude, he is outside the Eels. Forget the Eels exist. Out of those guys, man, Gutho's better at defense, hands down, than this guy. But when it comes to playing offense or attack, as we're supposed to call it, he is Gutho with the speed. If Gutho, I guess he had a knee injury way back when. So that's my guy, dude. I love watching that.
When you see a guy that makes other fast guys look not fast, as that I think it's a movie quote goes, they're always so much fun to watch. And the Hammer makes it look so easy. He just glides.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he's a stellar athlete.
Just call him the Hammer, Ron. That's the easiest way of.
I like his celebration. He has
his tribal celebration.
I'm like, wow, dude. Yeah. I loved it. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you.
No, that's all right. Well, that's why you're on here, to talk about your experience. So, from what you said, I've already got a few things I want to pick apart because you've given us some great insight.
Oh yeah, I don't get to talk about this with anybody, so I have it all built up. I wrote this stuff down. I wanted to be prepared and not give you So another team I didn't watch as much, and for the reason was, and it's going to surprise you because of the end result here, I didn't really watch the Warriors a whole lot this season because last year and the year before they're kind of poor. They weren't very good, and then this year they kind of surprised everybody. Everyone was pretty like, oh, these guys are pretty good. They're pretty good. They're all right. And then as the season went on, obviously, it turned out these guys are a wagon. Like, they're legit. They're not a joke. This team could possibly win it all. And that dude on the wing, I have his name written down here. What is his name? Dallin Zalesniak. That dude might have the best hair in the NRL. So
got a Head and Shoulders contract coming his way.
Yeah, right. I wish I watched them more towards the end of the season. So and part of that also was kind of interesting to see like how a team can go complete 180 into being better from the year before. And like I said, 180. Teams that kind of, again, specific teams that surprised me watching were the Cowboys, just because of how dominant they were. And then they're kind of up and down, similar to the Eels this past season. And their team, as I can remember, was relatively the same. The Bulldogs, they were kind of a big story. They had a different story every other week, I felt like, this season. Because they added players, and you look at their roster, and you're like, all right, they're going to be tough. And then they just kind of stunk most of the year with, inconsistent play. And from what I understand with this next team, the Roosters, they have a huge history in the NRL and rugby league in itself. And I'd have to look it up, but they have like a crazy amount of premierships. And for them to play kind of poorly this year, and I believe they squeaked into the playoffs. Just interesting to see what I know and seeing these dominance or this type of style. And then, like, real quick, they just were playing poorly. And you have the best player, quote unquote, or the second best player in Tedesco not playing so well, and the people around him, and then that whole not controversy, but the whole thing with the fullback. I forgot what his name. Not the fullback, the halfback. Walker.
Yeah. Him being in and out of the team, and then getting back into the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just kind of the different dynamics, and when you think a guy was so good, it's like, oh, this 18-year-old, 19-year-old dude's like going to be the future, and all of a sudden he gets benched 3 years in. It's just, I guess that happens in sports, but when you're starting that young, people think it's crazy when he gets benched at like 20 years old. It's like, this guy has like another 10, 12 years realistically to play at his best athleticism. Before I get on to the Panthers, I think the Broncos were a super, 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 super fun team to watch, because you see teams, the Panthers dominate every year I've watched. And then I believe in 2020, they went to the finals and they lost. And that's when I really wasn't paying attention to everybody pretty much. And to see another team go basically toe to toe and basically match competitiveness and skill and youth, and like, wow, these guys can like dominate them. And just to see how that grand final game was, holy moly, like that was crazy. And I wanted them to win for obvious reasons, but then also just to see like someone beat these guys. Super fun team. Those guys are going to be good for the next 10 years if they can keep their core. And then to go to the final part of that question with just the Panthers three-peat, you got to give it to them, because it'd be different if they were just a bunch of, bad dudes that squeaked their way in. No, they dominated the whole season. They had a great comeback in the grand final. It was probably one of the top three, even being new to this sport, it was probably one of the top three sporting event games I have ever watched. Like, because I don't want to spoil the results of these games. Even the grand final, I have to like be sneaky with my phone and updates and everything. And I went through my emails and I got this, there's that team store. It's called What's Your Team? I think it's based in Queensland. I get some of my merch from there, and I get emails. And one of them said like three-peat Panthers or something like that. And I was like, maybe it's just an advertisement. And then I ended up watching the game a handful of hours later, and I'm watching the Broncos win the majority of that second half and what the score was. I'm like, oh, that must have been just an advertisement. I didn't spoil it. Let's go Broncos. Then Nathan Cleary said, not so fast. And he just changed the freaking game.
Yeah.
Oh,
one of the
all-time,
all-time second halves. Yeah, for all-time 20 minutes, really. Just the final quarter of play completely took over that game.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome to see it. So I'm putting the Panthers here. I haven't been alive for very long when it comes to sports, but in my lifetime, I was born in 95. The Chicago Bulls, 90s, that's probably one of the greatest teams of all time, obviously. And then you got the early 2000s Patriots, and, a little bit 2010s with the Patriots there, but that dominance and Tom Brady. And now I think right behind them are the Penrith Panthers. I think maybe I might be missing someone or something there, but I have never seen a pure dominance in my sporting viewership and everything like that since I've been alive. And it's sad that a lot of people outside of Australia don't know how good to see that. I don't want to keep praising the Panthers here, but I appreciate how good they are, because there's a reason they're a three-peat champ.
Yeah, legitimate dynasties are rare in professional sports, and unfortunately, the Penrith Panthers are exactly that with their three-peat and also making a fourth grand final before that as well. So, an all-time team, no doubt. And it's, as a Parramatta fan, it's very frustrating. We timed our run to being a very good team, not an incredible team, the same time that the Panthers decided to have a dynasty, because I think the Eels in a sort of a vacuum could win a premiership most times, but we had our 2022 run in the same period that the Panthers decided to be an all-time great team. So that's how sports goes, though.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting that the Panthers, I mean, it's going to be hard to tip against them next year, even though they're losing a couple of players. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Broncos go without a couple of key players.
Yeah,
as
Farnworth, Flegler. I'm not sure who else they're losing, but that's a key piece in both the forward pack and the back line.
Yeah, and at a time when, look, I'm going to get onto your thoughts about the Eels going forward, but I think it's an interesting time for the Eels because for some strange reason we continue to compete with the Panthers in the regular round matches in a way that no other team seems to be able to do. So it is a strange time, as John said, and just with regard to dynasties, I mean you've probably read enough about the Eels dynasties in the early '80s, where from '81 to '86 it was the three-peat, and then a lost grand final in '84, preliminary final in '85, and then another grand final in '86, and that actually had followed on from making the finals every year from 75, including two grand finals in 76 and 77, and only missing the 80s final by 1 point, but winning the midweek competition that used to exist then. Now, I'm old enough that I saw that period of time, and it's etched in my memory. 40's a bit too young to have been around during that era, but I can't imagine what it must have been like to have been a rugby league follower when the Dragons won 11 in a row.
Holy shit! Oh, excuse me.
That's all right. So that is a bit of a, it was a different era, different rules, if in terms of possession and the offside. So it was more akin to rugby union than rugby league, now, but it was still very much rugby league in other forms. But yeah, the Dragons of that era were very, very special. And like 60 said, it is very difficult to even begin to sort of qualify or quantify what a fan would have felt. Because you talk about getting used to success, but if your team wins 11 straight, do you actually get bored of winning? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's wild.
And I think, what was it, 56 to 66 that they won, and it was like they literally had to change the rules of rugby league. Like, it was unlimited tackles back then, and I think in 67 they introduced a 4-tackle rule. So we got the 6-tackle rule now. Their first dip into that was 4 tackles, which was just far too short to have possession. And as John said, there was a whole lot of different rules around the game. I think they played under a 3-yard rule rather than 10 metres back then. Scrums were contested. There was a whole range of different rules that were then. Plus, it was basically anything goes out on the field. So a lot of the things that you see with penalties for high shots and things like that, punching, a whole range of things. It was there was a lot that was let go. Basically, they used to have what they'd call the softening up period in a game, where it was almost like the referee would turn a bit of a blind eye to the forwards sorting things out out on the field. If someone got in a shot on a player, they'd often let the player get his shot back at some point. So it was just a different era of football. It was a real. It was almost like I won't say it was like a boxing match with football, but there were things that went on in the game that were considered part of the game that now would probably earn you half a season sitting on the sidelines. So, probably now rugby league is far more of a spectacle and is skill based. And it wasn't that it was devoid of skill back then, but there was a lot of brutality in the game. I guess maybe the way that ice hockey's accepts its brutality.
Yeah.
I guess rugby league was a little bit like that, and especially and even then, after we came out of that era, Origin was allowed. Origin football
Yeah, it was allowed to be
like
a
that.
different beast.
Yeah. When they talk about when they have the comical cry of "bring back the Biff," it was because standing up and going toe to toe with someone was sort of an expectation that it's going to happen at some time in a game, and if you threw a punch, you wouldn't get sent off the field. If you clock someone from behind, maybe you might, but two blokes going toe to toe, they'd eventually separate them. But it'd be, it was just seemed to be an accepted part of the game. But anyway, we'll move on because I want to know, as an Eels supporter, whether you were able to take any positives out of this past season.
There was, excuse me, there was a couple things. There's really not a whole lot, unfortunately. One of the things I know one of the things I'll take as a positive for the most part as it stands today as we're speaking, most of the core of the team is staying. Some names I wrote down that are obviously key is Gutho, Mitch, Dylan Brown, Sivo, Balo, RCG, and Penasini. Right now, I think those guys are the most crucial right now. I know we re-signed Cartwright, and he played crazy good, and it was honestly unfortunate to see how much non-recognition he got because he's playing a 4 position. And I mean, me watching through a TV, he doesn't look like the typical forward body compared to Ryan Madison. So for him to play as well as he did in those positions was really awesome. And to re-sign him is key. And the thing is, we basically have the same team for the most part as the year before, the grand final season. So we have the ability to be good. It's not like we lost a bunch of we lost guys, but it wasn't like we lost everybody where we look completely different, like a facelift. So we have the ability to be good. We have the team to do it. So there's those takeaways. The biggest thing is consistency. That's the biggest thing is consistency. We lost those first 4 or 5 games, 6 games, whatever it was. There was that kind of terrible stretch there at the beginning. We didn't get blown out, if I remember. Everything was within like 1 or 2 scores or 3 points or whatever it had been. So we were in every game. So we have the team to do it. And another thing that's a positive, the young talent that we got to see this year that's coming through the ranks. For example, Jermaine Hopgood, the Panthers let him go, and we signed him. And it was one of those things like we hear all these good things from him, about him, and it's like, well, this guy's a mini Yao or Yo. I always forget. I can't pronounce that dude's name. Yo. And he basically lived up to the hype in a rookie season. I don't think he was classified as a rookie, but a full-time starter. We there's positives, and we're glad to have signed him. And it's like, well, good thing we scooped him up from the Panthers. So there's a good outlook on him. Brendan Hands. We lost Reed Monty, so it's like, well, now who's going to be the number 9? And then we had, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. The dude, what was his name that we had at the beginning of the season?
Josh Hodgson.
Josh Hodgson.
Hodgson. Yeah, we had him, and it was like, okay, we got this veteran guy who I believe is considered was like the second best, if not the best, dummy half for majority of his career. But he's at the back half, and he ended up getting hurt, and he had injury history and all this stuff. It's like, well, now who's going to play? This was possibly foreseeable, and then Brendan Hands comes and he just plays consistent. Didn't overplay his hand. He just played well. He was consistent, and he's only going to get better with more experience, and more experience is going to make him better. He's going to make him take those chances, running the ball, possibly getting a kicking game started. So there's positives in that, even though we do have Joey Lussick, which is nice. Now we have depth. We have a young guy who we know we can trust, and then we have a guy who has a lot of experience, who I was actually sad to see leave a couple seasons ago. Weirmu Greg, I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of expectations for him when he was first coming up, just because of how he ran and his size, but he proved me completely wrong, and he played super well, and it sucked when he got hurt at the time he did, because he was so hot whenever he did come into the game. And so I'm excited for a healthy season from him with more playing time. And then Luca Moretti, who I didn't really, not in a negative vein, more or less how I had of Greg. Moretti, I just didn't really know anything about. And he was this New South Wales player who had, he's putting in minutes. He's filling in for guys who are suspended or injured. And he played really well. And if he's going to be a staple on the bench, then that's a really good bench piece to have. Because I think he filled in at the number 13 spot, which is really good to have that depth. I think and we'll get into in the later questions that we'll have here about depth and where the Eels should go. I think big men on the roster isn't going to be an issue when it comes to depth and our focal point when someone goes down, because we have a lot of key pieces, even though we lost Davey. So there's only a handful of things. We know we're good, because that's what keeps me positive. We have the talent. Most of our key players in core are there. And the biggest thing was like, well, the Eels don't have anyone to replace these guys that they left. They lost this guy, this guy, this guy. Well, we do have people coming up that prove that they can be NRL players.
And on the back of that, given that we do have a core of talent that should see us in the finals consistently, one of the more divisive topics among Eels fans was what was exactly were the contributing factors to why we failed to make the postseason. How did you see it? What was keeping Parramatta back in 2023, from making the finals?
Well, like I said, consistency, that's key, because you don't see the Panthers, not trying to make this a Panthers podcast, but they make very little mistakes, and there's a reason why they have won so many games and so many premierships. So consistency is number one. The second thing, and you guys talked about it all season, all podcasts, injuries and suspension. We had, I forgot what the number was that 60 said on a couple different podcasts. Like, they had the most combined suspensions. I think it was like 22, and then the next team had like 7 less or something to that degree. And it really like stood out to me. Like, man, that's just terrible luck. And I think, in all sports, all different sports, there's a lot of luck. Like, every championship team didn't get there by blowing out every single team and didn't do this. And, they did this and this. There's luck. There's a lot of luck that comes into it. And I feel like the Eels literally had the least amount of luck that's ever been had. Like, nothing seemed to go their way in all those close games, or this guy getting suspended, or Sivo getting fined so many times, then suspended. And then it's just like, it's such objective calls. Like, it's just, and then Ryan Brown's situation, we won't get into it, but just something so unpredictable like that. And now we're scrambling to find it back. And Dejan, he was okay. He wasn't, there was just so many different things that had happened. And we got rid of Jake Arthur, where he would have been perfect in that role, and all that stuff happened. There was just so many different things that happened, and then injuries. So those are my takeaways from why they didn't make the finals: inconsistency, injuries, and the crazy amount of suspensions that went into it that didn't go our way. And there's a lot of bouncing of the ball in rugby league, and we didn't get any bounces. Yeah, we did not.
Yeah, it's like literally and figuratively, the ball didn't bounce the Eels' way in 23. It was. I think at the time that I tallied it up, and it wasn't quite at the end of the season. I think towards the end of the year, we'd lost. I think it was 120 something weeks of top 30 players being either injured or suspended. So obviously there was, I think, 22 rounds of suspension, and the rest was injuries. It was just a horrendous season in that regard, and we have to hope it's not going to be like that next year. So do you, with all of that, and I think I know what your answer's going to be, but if we're looking to turn things around, can we do that without significant changes to the current roster? Or do you think there is going to be some change that's needed, some additions?
Do I think that they can do nothing and be successful again? Teeny tiny bit, yes. Because they have a lot of the same core. And like I mentioned before, so like they have the people to do it already. They did most of it a handful of years ago. But no, obviously there has to be major changes, or additions, I should say. I mean, the biggest thing is what their depth. They got the big men. That was one of the things a year prior. But the outside back depth with the wings and the centers, that was what kind of did us in, because I'm not going to rip on this dude, Walker Blake, but he obviously 2 years ago was like clutch with his inconsistencies, but he was more clutch than the inconsistencies. When Sivo went down and Sean Russell went down that particular year, he stepped in and was a beast. Like, you're like, okay, you know what? I feel pretty good about this guy in the wing, better, more than center. And he was just awesome. Like, when he demolish Peppenhausen in that one game, and he just his mullet flew back. It was awesome. Like, we got this dude that's like, all right, we're good. And then you come into this year, Russell is playing well on the wing, but like, he's obviously not a difference maker. He's kind of like the Brandon Hands of the wing. Like, he's not going to mess anything up. He's going to do well when he's within 20 meters, but he's not going to blow people away. Sivo is good when he plays, but he went on that long stretch of it's not scoring. It was crazy. He also had a lot of bad calls. What was that, 2-3 weeks in a row where it's like, come on.
Yeah, he had a couple of tries come back that were, in my mind, pretty clear tries.
Yeah, that was dumb. And but yeah, that was the biggest thing, is the outside back depth. And right now, as it stands here, we signed that was it Marty or Morgan Harper?
Yes.
The guy from the Seagulls. He was okay a couple years ago. I don't think he played a whole lot this past season. He's obviously not a deal breaker or the game changer where we got our guy, this is it. But he's going to give us depth. Now we have options with Bailey, Sivo, Russell, Penasini. You throw Harper in there, one of those guys goes down. You know he's going to play. I would. From what I've seen, he's going to play better than how Walker did this past season, which is kind of sad to see, because he completely 180 in the opposite direction we want to go in, unfortunately. So we got that depth, but we need to add more. I don't know all the people in the New South Wales Cup. I know in that there's Zach Sini, who didn't get I don't think he got really any time this year in the NRL. And then one name that I follow on Instagram, because there was that stretch a couple years ago where he had like a try or 2 or 3 tries every game. It was that Matt Kamalafi. I haven't heard his name in the New South Wales Cup a whole lot. I think he kind of stayed in the lower ones. I forgot which ones before the other.
Jersey flag.
Yeah.
That's an age restricted competition, so it's for 21 years and under.
Okay. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if that guy can get a stretch or a start or a stint or just some sort of playing time, see what he could do or see if he can impress. So there is a little bit of depth in there, but obviously you want more experience and only have to use those younger guys if they blow you away or absolutely have to use them. So I do think that the focal point of these changes need to be the outside backs. And there is a recent name that has come up in possible trade, or as you guys say, swaps, Josh Adokar, and they would get Ryan Madison. I think that would be a perfect trade. Perfect for both teams. I don't really care about the Bulldogs. They would have 2 big men in kick out and Ryan Madison on their edges, and we still got Sean Lane and Cartwright, and then I forgot what his name is, but the dude we got from the Sea Eagles recently. I forgot what. Sorry for forgetting his name.
Talangi.
Yes, we got him. So we have depth along with all the people I mentioned in the previous questions. So I don't see how we can't make that happen. I don't know how all the negotiating works with trades and swaps in the NRL, but I saw a lot of hate for that on the social medias, and I'm like, dude, like, guys, we need that. And he's like a top 2-3 player, let alone at his position. So that would be absolutely perfect. And I wrote down one other name that I believe, if I'm looking at the internet correctly, I go on that Zero Tackle sometimes for statistics and contracts and stuff like that. Another name for this season that I believe is available is Billy Smith from the Roosters. I think he was pretty decent, and I think he's pretty young. Again, more depth. Is he going to be better than Sivo? Don't think so. But hey, we're getting depth. Maybe he beats out Bailey and he just becomes amazing. And we put Bailey at the wing with Penasini because Penasini ain't going over. Give ourselves options and chess pieces to play with differently. I'll let you guys talk, and then I wrote down names that are available for the next season.
Yeah, I think the malware that's coming out is, of course, Phil Gould denying that Josh Adokar's free to go anywhere, but that's not unexpected. The Storm, where we were being linked with Pappenhausen, has said, well, no, he's not going anywhere. We understand that Billy Smith may have re-signed with the Roosters. So that might be that out of the window. The one that the smoke, the smouldering fires still keeps going around is that we will pick up someone from the Shire, and that's the Cronulla.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So which player that ends up being, well, I guess we'll end up seeing. But it's. I think we're on board. I mean, for us, we have to get some players with a bit of pace out wide. Above all else, Ron, one of the things that if you've got depth and the players are a good quality with the depth, is that they put pressure on the players that are selected in the NRL team if they're playing well at New South Wales Cup level, and they also give the coach options. So the coach can basically say to, if Sivo's going through a bit of a lean patch, as he did last year, the coach can go to Sivo and say, listen, Micah, we really need you to lift in this area, because, player X in Cup he's really putting the pressure on, and I'm considering giving him a run. So, the coaches, obviously, they have their KPIs for players. They talk about the things they want them to improve in, and letting them know that they're under pressure for their spot and that there are genuine options is really important. And, the players that are running around in NRL, when there's no one that's in form or no one of significance in the grade below, they know that. They know their spot's not under pressure, and it might mean a difference of because you like to think players have got pride in their own performance, but that extra 5% that they might be motivated to improve by can mean all the difference in the world between games won and games lost. So and we see that because if there wasn't such a thing as players being in form or out of form, we wouldn't be talking about this, because we all know that players drop in and out of form. It's why players might make rep teams one year and not the next year. It's why teams might win premierships one year and not the next year, even with a similar core of players. So, form can be fleeting, form can be long lasting. It's and that's often the difference between the players that earn huge money and players that earn middling or lower level contracts.
Yeah, for sure. When you mentioned the money, that's for sure. I've seen that with my own sports teams. Guys get paid, and it's just like, all right, well, this guy's not trying anymore. You see him get traded, or they don't re-sign a guy and they go play somewhere else, and then they pop off, and it's really annoying. But I mean, like you said, you add more depth, it adds more competition, and more competition is great. Makes everyone else better around them. It gives them motivation. Job security becomes heightened, and like you said, they don't want to lose those jobs, and they want to play even better, so that next guy who might be better, just as good if not better, they don't want them to play. So that's why you can't have enough depth. So it's just like if they only come out with Harper as their quote unquote big signing, or they're changing their depth in the wing or outside, that's gonna piss a lot of people off. And it's just like, guys, we need to make a difference. Like, we can't, like I said, we have a lot of the same guys, and that's good, but also you can't just roll the same team out year after year after year after year and expect something to change, and that's not okay.
Yeah, and we can't expect some of the younger players coming through, like Will Penasini's younger brother Richard. He's definitely a player of the future. He'll probably play New South Wales Cup this year. Blaze Talangi, who he's now experienced success in the lower grades as both a 5'8" and a centre, and he's on a development list. Well, he was on it this year, and he'll be on it next year. He'll probably be playing New South Wales Cup. So we've got young fullback Upper Twiddle coming through from Jersey Flegg. We can't expect that those players are going to be ready to hit NRL and make a difference in NRL next year out in the back line. So we do have to recruit. Those players, they might make their impact in 2025 or 2026. They are players of the future, and it's an inexact science, as 40 well understands also, that we can look at players when they're playing in age football and think, this bloke's going to be an NRL player. I mean, we knew that about Dylan Brown. I think we're as sure as anything about Dylan Brown being that sort of player. But sometimes you get it very wrong. your impressions of
Oh, yeah.
players playing in age football, and there's a whole lot of it that becomes the mental side of the game because, players who are going to kick on to be NRL players, it is an amazing commitment that they have to make. It really becomes that mind game, the physical preparation that they go through with the training. It's just completely different to age football coming through. The intensity that's played week to week, just the grind of the full-time preparation. There's players that just aren't ready for that, and they could be superstar young players, and just mentally it's that really tough grind aspect. They can't do it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can't do it.
I totally understand. It's a commitment to the players. It's a commitment to the teams to trust these guys or take a risk on them or seek players other places and develop them for sure. Like I know 40, I believe he follows football and baseball in America, and he's were you a Mariners fan? You said last time we talked.
Yeah, so Mariners very similar to the Eels in a way between the last two seasons, going into the finals and then missing the finals by a narrow margin.
Yeah, and when it comes to their younger talent, Julio Rodriguez, that dude was in their system, and he was a high draft pick, I think. I don't know. Some of these baseball guys come out of nowhere.
Julio was the international draft, so he came out of the supplementary pathway.
I gotcha. But just like that, like you got this young stud, and he's so good, and there's a lot of expectations and all that, and he's fulfilling that. And me as a White Sox fan, I don't know if you follow any of the players on that team. You got I'm gonna spill a couple names here that you probably won't. Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, Tim Anderson, Andrew Vaughn. Those guys, even if you don't know them, they're all highly touted. And it's like, oh, we got all these guys. Oh, we're going to be so good in 3 or 4 years. Like 60 was saying, like, this guy's projected this. This guy should be good in a couple. You can have all that, but it's not always a guarantee those guys are going to pan out. Yep. And that's why I'm really frustrated with the White Sox right now because they had this, like, 4-year plan. And I don't even get into it. But anyway, though, it's just like you have the expectations, and there's still all these uncertainties. And it's just nothing's guaranteed. And another example of that in the NFL is Zach Wilson on the Jets. He was the number 2 draft pick. So he's expected to be the if not number 2, he's top 5. You're supposed to be one of the top 5 players to play out of that draft, and he's kind of been crap for the most part. Yeah. So just there is no guarantees. So if you have guys that will make a difference or you're really strong on them, I think you should give them a chance. But if you don't have that depth, then that's when you got to make a difference and sign these guys. And if you guys will let me continue a little bit, I'm sorry to keep on talking. I have guys that are able to sign for the next season, because I know in the NRL you're able to sign a whole year ahead, which gets confusing whenever they say this guy signs, yep. And it gets confusing. Like now or next year, like I don't. These guys are available that I think would be good. Obviously, once I start saying the names for the Eels to maybe target Bradman Best, Nick Meaney, Dallin, the Zalesniak from the Warriors. I can't say his name. I apologize if I can't get some of these names right. Dane Gagai, Suna Taruva, that dude on the Panthers.
Yeah, Taruva. Yep, he's good.
Joey Manu, and obviously he's super good. And then this might be a stretch, but it could tie into the Eels with Joseph Swali'i with the connection to Will Penasini. Obviously, we can't get all these guys, but these guys are available, and with the right price tag or maybe a little bit more success this season, it draws attraction. And I don't know how the recruiting goes with guys that are available, but these are names that I don't want them, like I said, I don't want them to sign all of them. Give me like 1, maybe 2, make a difference, make a splash, because we're not going to keep rolling out the same thing and expect the same thing or different results. I mean.
No, it's a very, very salient point there, and it's something that we've discussed, isn't it, 60s, about the importance of making maybe not just 1, but maybe 2, difference-making acquisitions across the team. Let's keep it moving, though, and I'm going to frame this question with the backdrop of obviously the 2022 and 2023 seasons and the night and day difference between the two of those sort of finishes there. But as a person who watches from overseas, from across the globe, did you notice any significant differences in how the Eels supporters express themselves on social media, across those 2 runs?
No, I didn't really have a lot for this question. No, I'm very pleased with how much they post and the information that comes out. I really don't have anything to change about those things. They post regularly. I get the news updates. I also follow other platforms for the NRL that obviously post Eels news. So for the amount of effort I put in myself, which I'm happy about, along with the Eels media, social media. They do a good job. They also have fun with it. Like when we had all those possible free agents before the start of the season, all the different graphics and videos that came out, like the Dylan Brown video. That was pretty funny. That's the only one that comes at the top of my head. But I remember when every different guy would sign, there's always like a fun video or a cool graphic. They do a good job, and I think they do. Yeah, they do good.
Okay, so you're pretty happy with how the Eels media communicates to supporters, but
Yes.
we've just had a losing season. Did you notice a difference with the supporters themselves in how they replied to things on social media? Was it a different experience interacting with fellow supporters, because that's how you make your connection with fellow fans, because you are over there in America. A lot of your connection is via social media. Was there a significant difference that you noticed, or was it something that you sort of expected, given you following other sports on social media over in the States and used to how fans react to losing seasons?
I mean, it wasn't different necessarily, but there was a lot more losing this year than prior years that I'm used to. So basically, even in those couple good years we just had, you lose a game, there's always those people that the world's ending. This guy stinks. Get rid of the coach. Get rid of this guy. This guy stinks. One guy makes a mistake, and it's his first mistake in like 7 games. Oh, this is why he's a bum. We should have got so and so, or why did we re-sign him? It was nothing different. It was just more of that. And I remember the first game of the season, people were ready just to write the Eels off. Like, yeah, they didn't go anywhere in hindsight, but they lost that game in what's it called, Golden Point time. So they it was people were saying the season was over after that, and it was just that's what annoys me. It'd be different if it was like round 18 and the Eels are like 6 and my math's gonna be off, 9 and 10 or whatever, a losing record. And then people are like, oh, whatever, we're not going anywhere. It's like, well, yeah, that's obvious. And then they lose the first game of the season, their first 3, and people are writing them off, and that kind of annoys me. But no, I mean, there's always going to be the keyboard warriors that know everything. When I comment, since it's my face and name next to what I'm commenting, I try to speak with what I know or what I feel confident in. I'm not a coach. I've never coached before. One of the things I saw all the time was Brad Arthur's this, Brad Arthur's that. Why did we re-sign him? Oh, he's a this, he's a that. And I'm just, go look at his record. It's a really good record. Look at his success rate. Like, Bill Belichick didn't make the playoffs every single time. Like, you're going to have losing seasons. People are going to cry. People are going to get mad. I totally get it. There's expectations. So, no ultimate difference. It's just with more losing comes more complaining.
That's a good way of putting it, I think, in a succinct way. And yeah, I mean, sports in sports media in general is always very reactionary. You mentioned watching NRL 360 earlier, and I was actually going to ask you, how did you feel about NRL 360 versus American sports shows, where I know a lot of hot takes sort of drive the agenda there, and like First Things First or whatever it's called, and a couple of other shows like that. But in saying that, Australian media is also very reactionary, and writing off the Eels after a couple of games is well within their sort of purview. So we'll keep it moving though. And 60s sort of teased this, and it's a really cool thing to talk about. Actually, I was really pleased when you told me that you were doing this, but I believe you're heading to Vegas for the opening round next year as the NRL heads to America and obviously heads to the city that never sleeps. But what excites you about seeing the game live, and what plans have you made? Because I believe that you're not going alone for the trip.
No, yeah, I am going to Vegas. I'm really excited just to go. I have gone in the past for my 21st birthday with 3 or 4 other buddies, and we just had a pretty cool time. I went to all the casinos, saw this, saw that, went to like a dance club. I went to a show, all that kind of stuff. I didn't have the Hangover type experience from the movie, but it was right. What stays in Vegas? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No, I didn't have anything like that. So, but it was cool to experience and be in a different state in a place I had never been before at the time. So this time around, it's strictly business with the NRL. I'm not doing anything. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm just gonna do a little sightseeing. But mainly, it's focusing on this game. I'm gonna bring my fiance, and if anyone listened to the prior podcast from last year, I met somebody in the Eels Facebook group that I get a lot of information with and contact with. He's also from the United States, and we've talked for the last 3 years, and we bought tickets together that are going to sit next to each other. We're like dead center, I believe, if I remember correctly, of the stadium in like the second or third level. I think it's the second level. Yeah, so I'm going to get like a full view, which is really cool, which we talked about earlier. So I'll get to see all those things I mentioned and you guys mentioned. So that's where I'm sitting. And yeah, I'm bringing his name's Kent. He's from South Carolina, and one of his buddies that lives, I believe he said he lives in Las Vegas already. So I don't know who he is, but it's going to be the four of us, and it's going to be a really good time. And I'm excited just to see those teams, even though it's not the Eels. It's going to be a really, really cool experience. But not a whole lot of plans, not a whole lot, just pretty much whatever my fiance wants to do because she's never been there and she doesn't want to do anything crazy. So just probably sightsee, go out to eat to the different restaurants, and watch some NRL rugby league.
Sounds like an awesome trip.
I'm excited.
So just on that, that's a little microcosm of people that are going. You've got yourself, you've got into the game. Your fiance who's coming along as part of the trip. You've got two other fellas that you've sort of linked up with. Well, one you've linked up with, the other fella who's obviously interested in the game. They've got that keen interest in the game. But what do you think is going to make up the stadium there? I mean, do you think they're going to get that the American public and media are going to embrace the game, or do you think it's going to be a lot of curiosity value? Do you think there's going to be quite a number of fans who are based in America that are just, been champing at the bit to be able to get to a live NRL game? I mean, how do you see it just from any of what you've seen in social media or comments from, local people, local social media, local media?
To be completely honest, I don't know exactly what to expect when it comes to the outcome or fans and all those kind of things like you mentioned. To be honest, again, I really haven't seen any advertising of any sort on ESPN or Fox, American Fox Sports. Nothing, or even on social media, unfortunately. I've only seen it on the Fox League that's based out of Australia that I follow, and the NRL pages, and the Eels have posted in the past a little bit here recently too, but that's it. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen when it comes to the fans coming to the game. There will obviously be people there. I'm going to assume there's going to be way more Australians there than Americans there, but it is Vegas, and there's always events going on and different things that people are curious about. And I said this a lot the last time we talked about the proper advertising, the proper marketing for this is what's going to be key about making this sport big in America. Because some people might just see it while they're out there, like, oh, this will be fun, or this will be cool, or like, hey, they're having this event. And I think the problem with that kind of is, and John mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast when we were talking about the rules of rugby league. I'm guilty of this. In my first year, I was watching one of the games with my buddy, and he's like, there's two types of rugby, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? This is it. And he's like, no, you're watching rugby league, and then there's rugby. And I was like, what? And he explained it to me, and I felt kind of stupid. But the thing is, in America, I'm sure there is rugby leagues out there, and there's also rugby union leagues out there too. The United States actually just added a league, the national, what is it called? The Major League Rugby, and Chicago's got a team that I could go watch, but it's rugby union rules and whatnot. So I think one of the biggest problems is people don't know that there's two types. And a good example of this is I couldn't tell you which one it was. It was like 2 fights ago, the UFC fights that were in Australia or New Zealand. In that location, they showed Nathan Cleary on there. Like, they show the celebrities like so-and-so and this person. They show Nathan Cleary on there. And at the bottom, it said Nathan Cleary. And at the bottom, it said rugby player. And then I saw that same freeze frame on like whatever Facebook thing. It might have been a random post. And know what all the comments were? Rugby league. It's not rugby. This isn't rugby. Rugby league. They don't know anything. Yeah. UFC doesn't know this is rugby league. And I'm like, people in America just don't. I think I'd say 97% of Americans that know what rugby is don't know that there's rugby and rugby league. And I'm one of those people. And I think that's the biggest thing. So they're going to see this as, oh, it's rugby. And even if they don't really know what rugby is, other than it's dudes that hit each other, that's kind of like football, that don't wear pads. The ball's big and white, and they throw it backwards, and they don't call it a touchdown. They call it a try, but they're still kicking. Like, that's the basis of what people know of the game. That's what I knew until I started watching this, and I thought this was the only form of rugby out there, which it's not. And I much more prefer this game because the other day, actually it was yesterday, I was watching the Rugby World Cup that was on ABC, and it was, what was it, New Zealand versus South Africa. And I actually watched like a legit 10 to 15 minutes, like legit time watching. I'm like, this is kind of, I just wasn't a fan of it. Like they didn't have to stand back 10 meters. They're kicking the ball correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't actually dove into the rules. In theory, could the team have the ball the entire time as long as it doesn't go out of bounds, or if they don't, if they don't score, they could. In theory, they could.
Theoretically, yes, they could have a single possession in the entire game. Yeah.
Right, and they're kicking the ball here and there, and I'm like, why would they? Why would they do that? They're in the middle of the field. I'm trying to follow these rules, and then it's just very confusing. Like I've heard it said on 360 when Swalii was going through that phase, or Payne Haas had those rumors. So I was like, okay, well, rugby is completely different, and it's slower. And I'm watching this. I'm like, man, dude, they were completely right. I only watched 15 minutes with it. It was very hard for me to follow, and it was a championship type game. So I'm not knocking the sport. Like I'm not going to hate on it. But getting back to my main point, a lot of people in America do not know that there is two types. And this one that we follow and love is very similar in, I would say, multiple ways to American football that helps you learn this game. And once you learn it, then you understand it's different and how much harder it kind of is than NFL football, and how much I appreciate it. So back to the original thing. I think there'll be more Australians there than Americans. If it's advertised properly, there could be more Americans there. Las Vegas is heavily populated for obvious reasons. There's going to be a lot of people there, but I really don't know how the mass majority are going to view it and all those types of things. I think nonetheless, it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited. None of the outside stuff is going to change me, because I'm just going to be in love the whole time and probably lose my voice. And I'm excited to see those top teams and just how everything is. And if this thing is advertised how it should, this could blow up. I really think it could, but it just has to be done correctly. And I think this is the first small step. Oh, one thing I saw, a recent update, Tom Brady is getting talked about in regards to this game, because he's a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, who are on my TV right now in the other room. I mean, he's a small part owner of it, and it's held in Las Vegas. It's held at the Raider Stadium. It's going to be held at the Raider Stadium. If there's commercials, there it is. That could be the perfect marketing. You have enough commercials with Tom Brady, with a highlight reel of some of those teams or the top players, Tedesco, Latrell Mitchell, and a handful of the Broncos players, to be completely honest, or an old highlight of Teddy Turbo, Tom Turbo. I don't know why I said Teddy. They could have something there. So, I mean, done properly, it could be done well. Do I know if that's going to happen? I do not know. Sorry.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. From a timeline perspective, you would think that they must be getting close to the point where they want to start marketing.
You got to start spruiking
the game, because, I mean, there's obviously probably going to be tour packages from Australia where, the clubs might be in on it, but where there will be, packages for flights and accommodation and, making a trip of it for Australian tourism over to Las Vegas. But just as much, like, you've got people like yourselves who are traveling to see the game from elsewhere in America. So there's internal tourism within America for people to be able to go and see the game. And given that we certainly saw an influx of Americans who appreciated the game of rugby league when COVID hit, and rugby league became one of the sports that was still available during that whole period, and played consistently. There was a real chance to hit the market, but I'm not sure how much rugby league is interested in developing a new market, watching the game as much as developing a betting market, watching the game. That's probably one of the
betting
the
money
main
is huge.
I think it could happen, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it very much definitely could happen. I don't think I messaged 60s about this, not this season, but the last. I did a 8-game parlay and I got $1,500 because I bet on whatever week it was, and it ended up being the Eels for the last game of that week. And I was up at I stayed up. I ended up staying at 2, 3 in the morning to watch the game, and I was screaming at my TV more than I normally did. And I ended up winning. And people were like, "You won $1,500?" I was like, "On what?" And I was like, oh, rugby league. Like, you watch rugby league? It was like guys at work. And I was like, yeah. And it's like, you just did it randomly? I was like, no, I watched. Oh, wow. Because you have guys at work that are betting on Eastern Germany table tennis because they have addictions to betting. It's ridiculous. I also had one more thing to say to what you said, 60s, about how them trying to get the jump on advertising this. And it jogged my memory to someone else from Australia, one of the groups, asking me the same exact question. And I think this is actually, I think it is a very good point that's kind of negative towards the game. So obviously in America, NFL is king. It is when it comes to other
It's the
sports.
big dog. Yeah.
Yes. And because of that, in February, the biggest game of the year is played in February, and that's the Super Bowl. And then I believe the NRL starts in mid-March, late March, or whatever it is.
Yeah, early March.
Okay, well then there's that too, early March. So you got the Super Bowl in February that everyone and their mom is going to pay attention to, and then the very next thing in regards to what we're talking about is the NRL game in Las Vegas. So in theory, if they don't focus on this game until the last minute, that's very much what could happen, because that's all they're going to advertise. And then American baseball starts with spring training, like the preseason, others would call it, right into that. But obviously, this is their chance to make it right there and advertise right after the Super Bowl, because you can't see them competing with the Super Bowl, unfortunately. Like, as much as I think they should or not, but it's just not how it is, unfortunately. So I think that's one thing that hurts the NRL in regards to the time frame. Is the Super Bowl and then this game.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. Obviously, I think getting Brady on board, if that is true, is a good move. I mean, he's like literally one of the most recognizable athletes. And you talk about NFL being the big dog, Brady being arguably the greatest of all time there, even if he's, just doing it for a paycheck, still good to have him on board. And even just picking Vegas outside of the betting market stuff and getting, the Vegas money into the game. It's very interesting because Vegas is obviously exploding with sport right now. They've got the Golden Knights killing it. They just picked up the Raiders from from Oakland, and they're about to get the Athletics from Oakland as well. So a lot of sport coming into Vegas. Maybe you can tap into the excitement there. Remains to be seen, but it is exciting to see the code making a move. And there's talk about getting all the big athletes, big actors like Hemsworth and Crow and whatnot over there doing some media blitzes to pump it up. And I imagine they'll get onto late night TV and spruiking it on. I don't even know who the big late night guys are anymore, but they'll be out there pumping it and whatnot. And yeah, very, very interesting, which sort of leads me to my last question. And I'm sure Sixties might have a little bit of sort of any follow-up or tidy-up questions go. But the last question I got for you from me is that one of the great sporting oddities when it comes to just sports in general is that at any given sporting event, you can sort of keep an eye out, where's Wally, where's Waldo style, for someone in a South Sydney jersey that, red and green or myrtle and red sort of colours. But the other jersey that also obviously gets around out there is the Parramatta jersey. I think we've seen it at a few different World Cups that are involving rugby league and a few different sporting events. So can we expect you to be wearing your blue and gold out there at Vegas and catching on the camera maybe?
Oh yeah. Well, that part I can't predict, but yeah. Oh yeah. I'm definitely even though the Eels aren't playing, and I hope they play in another year or two, because I'll for sure try to go then. Yeah, I'm going to wear my Eels jersey for sure. I have all 3 from this season. I have 1 or 2 from the last season. Once they start updating, I might have to jump. I always have to jump on the one I like. But yeah, for sure, I'm wearing my jersey. I'm going to have to probably give one to my fiance. And then the guy I mentioned earlier, Kent, that's from South Carolina, he's like, I'll tell him I got a new jersey. He's like, oh, I'm going to have to get one. And then once we book this, he's like, yes, I'm definitely going to have to get one now so I can wear it. Because obviously people are probably going to say something to us. Maybe some dude that's from Australia that's a Rabbitohs fan that's going to say like something to me, and I'm going to start talking in an American accent. I'm like, whoa, what the? And then, it'll be a conversation starter in itself. Also, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to see if we do make it on TV, just the array of different things that, because I think there's obviously going to be a lot of people there from Australia that aren't Rooster, Rabbitohs, Broncos, Sea Eagles fans. Like, so for sure, I'm definitely going to do that.
I think it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be such a melting pot of supporters that you're probably going to find yourself talking and mixing with people with a range of accents and a range of different jerseys that they're wearing. I think it's probably going to be a really fun experience to be at, and especially in the before and after, maybe some of the bars and pubs around Vegas before and after the game. And I don't know whether you're going to have those sorts of, what do they call them, tailgate parties or whatever that happen for NFL games. It'd be interesting what the whole experience is like. I mean, we're looking forward already to be able to catch up with you after the event, just to talk about what your weekend was like with that, and what happened.
Well, that's the thing. What we said earlier, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So who knows if I'm going to let you know.
we might have to get the stripped down version.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking for sure. That'll really excite me, and I'll let you guys know for sure. I'm excited. I don't know what to expect because I actually thought about this not too long ago. What if I'm there at just some random casino, and it's like, because I think we haven't bought the tickets for the flight or the hotel yet, but we got the tickets for sure. I got it. But what if? Because I'm trying to go on like a Friday, either that Thursday, Friday, or the Friday. I play on Saturday and for sure leave Sunday. But what if I'm at a random casino and I'm just enjoying myself, or my fiance, we're walking around, and I see like freaking Teddy Tedesco right there, and he's just doing whatever he wants to do, and there's a billion Americans around him other than his entourage there, and I'm just like, should I like go ask him for an autograph? Should I take a
100%?
I'm like,
yeah,
does anybody know who this is? Nobody knows who this. Just there. Or Latrell Mitchell just enjoying it. Like, I don't want to be a weirdo or annoying fan, but it'd be funny to be in that scenario where like there's a superstar right here, and I'm like the only person in the 10 feet radius who has any idea who this guy is, or so on and so forth. So it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, it was. It does remind me of a funny story. My parents and auntie and uncle were out somewhere in country New South Wales at a pub, and there was a fellow who was quite a star of the game named Sam Bacco, who I think he'd might have only just retired from the game, but he was a Queenslander, played a bit down in Canberra, I think, from memory as well. But anyway, they're at this pub out in the bush, and they look over, and one of them said, "I think that's Sam Bacco over there," and he overheard them and came over to their table and said, "Yes, it's me." and then sat down with them to have a drink and a chat and what have you. That like it was quite a moment for them. Like, here's this former superstar, well-known player, but is really quite a knock-around sort of bloke. And hears them say his name. Yes, it's me. It's me.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So look, mate, we really appreciate you coming on and having a bit of a chat about your takes on what's happening in rugby league and what's happening with the Eels and about this Vegas trip. It's really obviously going to be a big focus of the start of next year. And as I said, we're looking forward already to catching up with you after the event and seeing what the entire experience was like. The vibe around it, whether you think it's going to help rugby league to kick on in some way, be it either with a following or with betting or whatever the case may be. So thanks for joining us again today, mate. And we will certainly be looking forward to any photos that you've got from that event.
Oh, for sure. I will definitely. Well, first of all, thank you for letting me come on. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Like I said earlier, I also don't get to talk about almost any of this stuff to anybody. So it's really nice to get it out and voice my opinions and learn and speak to you guys in the back and forth. And I listen to you guys religiously whenever a new one pops out. So this is really fun and exciting for me in itself just right now. And going forward, I'd love to come on again. And I'm more than willing. You don't got to pull my arm on it. And for sure, after Vegas, I'll for sure to let you in on all the pictures and the events and what went down. Maybe I'll be on TV. I'll try to find what's his name, Brat, the guy from 360.
Yeah, Braith.
I can't say these names.
Yep. Braith is definitely an odd first name though, so don't blame me there. There's not too many Braiths running around in the world.
So maybe I'll be on some sort of media coverage, or at least be in the background with the sign or something. But I'm looking forward to it, and I will for sure let you guys know. And again, thank you for letting me be on this. It's
Always
awesome.
pleasure,
and I'll tell you what, if you end up, like if you're walking past and someone grabs you from Australian media for a bit of a chat, you've got to say, "Oh, shout out to my fellow Eels supporters, the Cumberland Throw."
Oh, for sure. I'll say 60s and 4020 and the whole Clint and the whole gang. And
Yes.
I'll throw Spiro out there too.
Yes, good man.
Well, then then you definitely know that you've made it when you can throw Spiro's name out there.
Yeah, I miss him on the show. I like his takes.
Yeah. Spiro,
yeah.
Spiro was a great foil for us, but I mean, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for him, moving on to bigger and better things. So it's always good we can have him back on the show. But the young man is doing very well in his career, which is fantastic.
Oh yeah. You wouldn't be aware of this, but he's the work that he's doing on radio now and in the coverage of rugby league on 2GB. He's heading for a massive future in the game. It's and he is, mind you, he's still the same bloke. He's a pretty humble and he's fellow and he's a really good human.
And
so,
speaking of humble, never would have made it where he was without TCT. Obviously, stay humble.
Oh, for sure. He's probably gonna end up overtaking what's that guy's name, Jake Duke on the sideline. He'll probably overtake his job.
He's definitely in that sort of trajectory. He's going to be somewhere
awesome.
somewhere high up, not too far off.
Yeah. He'll probably end up calling the game. In all seriousness.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Okay, mate, thanks again for being on the podcast.
Yeah, 60s, always a pleasure to have Ron on the show. And it is really cool to get that perspective from America on the Australian product. And I hope he has an absolute blast in Vegas.
Yeah, a little bit jealous of
just a little bit.
Go to such an event. I mean, obviously there's no Parramatta involved in it, but I think just the
spectacle, the
spectacle. Yep. That there's going to be such a broad spectrum of people that are going to be there at the game, and it will be great. I'm really looking forward to how the game is covered, and not just the matches themselves, but the vibe leading up to it, getting the media around the people that are attending the game, because I'm really curious as to who's going to be there, the mix of it. We know that there's going to be Aussies there that travel to watch the game. There's going to be expats there that will be at the game, but it's going to be interesting to hear from local fans like Ron at what drew them to being there at the game. Are they there for curiosity value? Have they become NRL fans? Have they got a club? Why did they become NRL fans? Why did they start following a particular club?
I think we're going to be uniquely positioned to get a real on the ground response to that, those questions and the feeling around the event. Like how many neutrals were there? How many Americans were there? I think Ron's going to give us a fantastic insight into how the event plays out in terms of not just the Australians going across and the show from our end, but how it was received from America.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm really looking forward to catching up with Ron after the event, just to find out how he related that to seeing live American sport, just to, make that comparison and see what he thought the reaction of fellow spectators was. Yep. I mean, we're obviously going to get grabs of that from the media coverage of the event as well. But yeah, being able to talk to someone and really get an in-depth chat about it, because we're obviously going to just get grabs from people via the media.
And the fact that we're not getting the Australian lens, which I think can be, a bit of a bias there, because they're going to try and gas up the whole spectacle and see how amazing it was, and being able to get someone like Ron who understands rugby league, but can also give us that American context and tell us how it was honestly received by Americans is going to be very, very cool.
Yeah, and I guess it'll give us a bit of an idea about what sort of appetite there is for future events. I don't see that it's going to be something where there's going to be more than this sort of event played in America, like make it that annual event. But still, it'll be interesting to see what his takes are on what's transpired after the event. And really, as I said, really looking forward to that. So we thank him again for his time in today's podcast. Hope everyone enjoyed listening to Ron's opinions on things, not just on Parramatta, but on rugby league in general, because this is really someone who's new to the game, and we wanted his takes on what it was, not just about Parramatta, but the game in general this year, that he he found entertaining to watch. And I think when he was talking about the players that he enjoyed watching, that you were able to hear that there were players across different clubs that really got his attention as a supporter, and that gave him enjoyment in watching particular players and particular teams, the way they played. And maybe that sort of gives an idea to clubs about how they market the game or market the players within their team to appeal to as wide an audience as possible. So, hopefully, as I said, people enjoyed that. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Big Swing Golf Northmead and Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. These wonderful supporters of the Cumberland Throw make it possible for us to do what we do. So we're really appreciative of their continued support of the Cumberland Throw. John, thank you as well for making yourself available for this podcast, as always, and for doing your fine job as host of TCT's podcast.
Yes, fine job, in inverted commas. No, always a blast. Great episode. Thank you, 60s. Catch you guys in the next one.